About as embarrassing a performance as it gets, 8-3, and probably the final nail in the coffin for the Sabres playoff race. Plus, I got a theory on Don Granato coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is presented by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On. You'll get $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. The Sabres got rolled in Edmonton on Thursday night. We'll talk about a game that they pretty much gave up on. And with this result, I say the final nail in the coffin for the Sabres playoff race. 33-33-5, far out of the race. And to me, it would take an undefeated record pretty much at this point to talk about a likely playoff spot. We'll get to all that coming up here on the show. I've got a theory, an added theory, as to why I do not expect Don Granato to be fired this offseason. And I think this theory is the best. If you're someone that wants to see Granato canned this summer, I believe this is the best theory to get you to say, okay, I guess it's not so bad if he sticks around. I think I can convince you on that, but we'll see. Be sure to check out our Locked On Sabres text line. You can hit us up if you have not subscribed already. The way to do that, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. When you do that, you are in the chat from there on, and it's all texting from there. So you only have to go into the browser one time, and then we get you updates. We get you line combinations, stuff during the games as well, especially once the Sabres are returning from this homestand. One comment from our text line that I do want to get to is a reaction to last night's game. This team has major flaws, and I don't know where to start anymore. They may not make the playoffs in the next 10 years. Get rid of all the players, so coach is can't get rid of all the players, so coach is the only real change. I like Granato, but something has to give here. That is from one texter. Another texter, on Adams. Kevin Adams is the biggest reason the Sabres regressed. Failing to make a move when Quinn went down with injury over the summer. That was compounded when Thompson, Skinner, Cousins all missed time too. Not shedding Olofsson in the offseason. Re-signing aged veterans in the offseason. Failing to address lack of physical presence with the upfront group. Failing to hold Granato accountable for his coaching staff. That one I will throw in. I don't believe is all on Granato. I think Matt Ellis is someone that was a part of the organization already, and that was a part of the deal for Granato to become the head coach, was that Matt Ellis would be his assistant coach. So I don't put that one on Granato. Adams talks about not sacrificing the future, but there are only 12 spots at forward. 7 of those are tied up. There are 3 spots in which a decision needs to be made. Greenway, Krebs, Girgensons. I don't agree on Greenway. This leaves 2 to 3 spots with 5 top-tier prospects. Means the youngest team in the NHL gets younger. That's a good point, too. And that is something we'll talk about a lot as we get into the summer, which is, when are the Sabres going to decide whether or not they want to continue to be the youngest team in hockey, or they want to start to change that age curve and become a little bit of a more older presence team, veteran team. But to do that, they would have to package some of those prospects. We'll talk more about that as we roll on. 8-3, Oilers over the Sabres. In a game where the Sabres took a 2-0 lead into the final 5 minutes of the first period, it really could have been 3-0 had Rasmus Dahlin not put his teammate offside in the first period. They scored a goal. It got reviewed. It was obviously offside. That one wasn't even close. I think all of us saw it the moment it happened that it was offside. So that game very easily could have been 3-0 in the first period. But it was 2. Draisaitl on the power play. Matthias Ekholm. The Oilers got back in to tie it. But, oh, look, there's JJ Peterka to give the lead back. 5 minutes to go in the second period, 25 minutes left. The Sabres are up 3-2. They gave up 6 unanswered. And we'll get to what happened on those 6 unanswered, but it's a very, very different type of story. Some of the numbers before we get to what happened at the end of the game. The Sabres were outshot 39-29 in this game. They didn't play that poorly. They played pretty well, I thought, in the first period. They played fine, I thought, in the second period. And then, of course, let's get to the third period. The third period, totally different story. Darnell Nurse, Matthias Ekholm. They score within a minute of each other at the 4:38 mark and the 5:40 mark of period 1. So it's 5-3 at that point. You got 15 minutes to go. You're only down 2. Things have gone really poorly. You're probably not going to win. You're probably not going to come back and tie it. But the game's not over. You got 15 minutes. Get one in the next 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then you've got a shot here. So what happens? Sabres get some chances. They didn't play that poorly, I thought, in those next 15 minutes. And then, boom. Total, utter quitting by the Sabres. Zach Hyman gets his second of the night, 48th of the year. Ryan McLeod, Connor Brown, they get it all the way to 8. Go back and watch those goals, and don't watch the puck. Watch where the Sabres are. Watch where watch how much they're moving. Watch where they are positionally. It's a total give up. Guys aren't moving their feet. They are completely leaving Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen out to dry. Rebounds that are in the middle of the ice. Sure, that's not a great job by Luukkonen to put a rebound out there in the middle. That's on the Connor Brown goal. But an Oiler gets there, and it's not even, like, there's no Sabre even close. There's no Sabre even ready to contest the shot, let alone pick up the loose puck. They did not challenge Edmonton at all in the final 5 minutes. And Luukkonen knew it. Luukkonen, at one point, maybe this was after it was 7-3, made a save, covered the puck, and shot the puck into the corner in frustration. And then, after the Connor Brown goal to make it 8-3, he smashes his stick on the post. And I thought he had every right to do so. I thought he had every right to do so for the way his players around him let him down. I think they totally, utterly let him down in that third period. They let a lead get away from them. That was crime number 1 of the game. But then to let the guy down to dry, that is the only reason you're even in a playoff race this late in the season, was a pretty terrible job, I thought, by the Sabres. The Sabres had been the best team in the league at defending Connor McDavid in his career. The only team in the league that had held McDavid to a point a game or fewer. He's now well over a point a game. Connor McDavid, 4 assists in this one, including the Matthias Ekholm goal, the one that made it 2-2 early on in the second period. That there's no fault in that one. There's no fault on anybody. I mean, the other 7 goals, there's a lot of fault to go around. But that one is just Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl flying down the ice. McDavid is the best player in the world. Draisaitl is one of the best players in the world. And there's only so much you can do. They made as skilled a play as possible. McDavid beating Tuck to a spot, which is super impressive because Tuck is also an incredible skater. And McDavid slams on the brakes. He throws it over to Draisaitl, makes a great behind-the-back pass to Ekholm. I mean, that's one goal that made it 2-2 that there's nothing you could do about it. That is skill and speed. And McDavid was phenomenal on the night. He's now up to 85 assists, actually 86 assists on the season. But they had done a very good job at defending McDavid before that game, and now he's well over a point a game against the Sabres for his career. So that's another loss out west. And with that being compounded by a Detroit Red Wings win over the Islanders, 7 points back. 7 points back of the playoffs. They don't have enough time. And they have not showed anyone any reason to be confident that they could go on the run that they will need. And now that they are 7 points out and have played more games than everybody, it's probably going to take, for them to have a greater than 50-50 shot to make the playoffs. The current playoff pace in the East is 91. The Red Wings are on pace for 91 for that 8th and final playoff spot. To clear 91, the Sabres would have to go 11-0. To get above a 50-50 shot, they basically got to go 11-0. for a team that's longest win streak on the season is 3. They have to almost quadruple their longest win streak of the season. No reason to believe that's going to happen. Nobody should believe that that's going to happen at all. This season is dead. They're not going to make the playoffs for the 13th consecutive season. I'm declaring it. If you want to hold out hope and keep scoreboard watching, you can. Part of the reason I'm ready to finally declare the season dead right here and now, not only is how far out they are, we've got a lot of waiting around to do here. They've got one game in their next 5 days. So it's going to be a lot of sitting around, watching Detroit play, watch the Islanders play, watch Washington play, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, and they're all going to pass them. They're all going to run away from him. By the time the Sabres return home, they could win on Sunday night against Calgary. They could win that game on Sunday. And by the time they play Ottawa Wednesday at home in their return to KeyBank Center, they could be 11 points back. That's not unrealistic at all. They could be back to being double-digit points back. So, not hopeful at all. Their playoff odds right now, according to moneypuck.com, 3.4%. Their odds to pick number 1 overall, if the season ended today, 5%. Right now, their odds to get Macklin Celebrini, number 1 overall in the NHL draft, are higher than they are to make the playoffs. And that's the type of mentality I think I'm going to be having for the rest of the season. Not that they should be tanking. There's really no much higher they could go in the lottery odds. But that's the way I'm thinking about it right now. Timeout here when we come back. Doom and gloom season. I'm declaring it over. We'll talk more about that on our next show. I want to get to at least one positive thing, if not even two, if you want to consider my Don Granato theory coming up in the third segment a positive thing. One positive thing that I did see come out of Thursday's loss to Edmonton. JJ Peterka coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Game Time. Check out the Game Time app. The Sabres do have a homestand coming up. And listen, the one positive about the team being pretty bad at this moment in time is you do get some cheaper tickets. If you just want to get into the arena, have a night, go watch some hockey, watch the best players in the world do it, check out the Game Time app, and you get killer last-minute deals, all-in prices. The views from your seat, a great feature, lets you know exactly the angle you'll be looking at. Maybe you'll like the bird's eye view up top. Maybe you like to be down on the glass, somewhere in between. You get that exact clarity when you're looking through seat by seat. Also, their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last minute seats even after the minute seat. Find exclusive flash deals, sponsor deals, tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKED ON. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports today. You watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Got to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the yelling. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Oilers 8, Sabres 3. Sabres fall in their only trip to Edmonton of the season. Zach Hyman, by the way, noted Buffalo Bills fan, Toronto native, Zach Hyman, 48 goals on the year. It's what, pays to be playing with Connor McDavid for a career. So one positive thing that did come from the Sabres loss, on Thursday, I think they had a little bit of a nice combination between Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch, and a line mate that I don't remember those two ever having for an entire game. JJ Peterka was awesome on that line with those two. That line had so much speed and skill when they were really going good. And Peterka gets 2 goals in his first game with those two. Peterka scoring his 22nd and 23rd goals on the season. If you look at the teammates that he's played this season, and the production that he's had with them so far this year, Alex Tuch, 92 minutes of ice time at 5-on-5. Tage Thompson, 58 minutes of ice time. For comparison, Peterka's played 600 minutes with Dylan Cousins. He has played with 137 minutes with Peyton Krebs. He has played 335 minutes. I'm actually, you know what I'm doing right now? I apologize for this. I'm looking at the wrong season. The numbers are not going to be too far off, though, I guarantee you. Cousins this year, 467 minutes. Thompson, 68 minutes. And Krebs, 195 minutes. Middlestat, 237 minutes. So by far the center that Peterka has played the least with is Tage Thompson. And I like that combination. All three have speed. All three have skill. All three have the ability to put the puck in the back of the net. And one thing that I liked about Peterka on that line, as opposed to like when Jeff Skinner's on that line, is pace. They all can go at the same pace. Skinner is a guy that likes to slow the play down a little bit more. Now, I don't mind that. I mean, that worked last year to a T, but there is something to be said for when you want to go, having three guys on the ice that can all play that speed. And I think Thompson, I've talked about how I don't have him like skating, but I do like his skating when he is going full speed. And I think Peterka helps that out. So I hope they continue with that combination. Peterka is an interesting one. Quickly on him. He has the second most goals on the team this year. He might even pass Jeff Skinner for the most. I do wonder if he is the guy they will give an extension to this offseason. I mean, they have to make a decision on Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, but they can pay Peterka this summer if they so choose. Now, if they want to be extremely bold, you could sell high on JJ Peterka. You could. You could say, hey, we got to make spots somewhere, and we can't trade Cousins or Thompson. And I don't even know if you'd want to. They're centers, and you don't have any other centers. We're not going to trade Tuch because of the veteran presence in the two-way game and because of what he means to the team. We're not going to trade Jack Quinn because he's coming off an injury, and we won't get value for that. You're not going to get anything for Peyton Krebs. You're not going to get anything for anyone at the bottom of the lineup right now. So if there's a forward on the roster that would be sell high, there's only one that is tradable, and it's Peterka. I don't like the idea personally because I think Peterka's ceiling is massively high. I don't know how high, but I think it could be crazy high. So I personally don't love that idea, but it's the only real sell high type of move I think you could find anywhere at forward. Now, they don't have to make a sell high move. They already did it with Middlestat. But just saying, if that typically in concept is an idea you like of taking a guy that is at probably his peak value and getting rid of him right then and there and getting a ton of stuff or using him as part of a bigger deal, Peterka is the only name to even really have a discussion about. But again, I don't think that's going to be much of a discussion throughout the summer. But Peterka extension, maybe a 7-year deal for $5.5-6 million bucks. That would be about the range I think you would have to give him to get him on that long-term deal right here and now. All right, when we come back, a lot of people wondering about like the biggest move they could make this offseason. And I think a lot of people believe that move is firing Don Granato. There are financial reasons that I think fly in the face of them firing Don Granato. I don't believe they will fire Don Granato. And I think a big reason is finances. But another reason that I don't hear often mentioned that I want to throw past you when we come back, a reason you will like, I think, to, all right, fine. If they're going to keep them, that's not a bad reason to do it. I'll let you know what that is when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. I might convince a few of you. We are presented here on the show by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Final segment here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres fall 8-3 to Edmonton next up Sunday at Calgary to finish off a pretty abysmal so far West Coast road trip where the season pretty much died. So, lot of texters, especially on our Locked On Sabres text line, that really want Don Granato fired. And I totally get it. Totally get it. Here's one texter today. Would love to see Brindamore here. My biggest concern with Donnie came after the Casey trade and hearing the work ethic, focus, and intensity the Avalanche practice with. We've seen far too many times this year the team slow out of the gate in games, and you wonder if there is correlation between the two. So, a lot of sentiment like that, right? Like the middle stack comments as of late. He made another comment about how high-paced and hard the practices are in Colorado. Granato has a microscope on him right now, and the roster isn't very flexible. They've paid guys. They have their top 6 forwards figured out. They have their top 4 defensemen figured out. And they have their 2 goaltenders figured out. Not a lot of room unless you're willing to make a really bold move this summer. So naturally, okay, if I can't change the roster too much, what about the coach? The coach is the 6th longest tenured coach in the NHL, and he hasn't made the playoffs yet, obviously. That's incredible. A league that fires coaches all the time. This is the one organization where it feels like, nah, that's not part of the deal here. So why is that? I think there are 2, maybe 3 even big reasons why that's the case. 2 of them are kind of the same point, though. Number 1 is his contract extension that he signed last summer hasn't even kicked in yet. And does Terry Pegula want to pay a head coach not to coach for him like a whole one and for 100% of a contract? He has not coached a game yet on that new contract. So that's a trepidation I have about them just firing him this offseason. Another reason, and these 2 things kind of tie together. There's 2 other reasons why I think they're going to bring Don Granato back. The players love him. They love him. But that bleeds into my 3rd point. And maybe this is a huge one. This might be the only one I think fans can empathize with and say, okay, I get it enough. And that's the best reason to keep him. You might not agree with it. You might still want him fired. But I think most would agree that of these couple of reasons, this is the best reason to hang on to Don Granato. The Sabres have a problem convincing players to come here. I got another, kind of implication from Kevin Adams. Paul Hamilton's been mentioning in a WGR, referencing this from the trade deadline, that Adams talked like he had a deal done for about like a 27, 28-year-old centerman. And the center, he kind of implied the center didn't want to come here. The Sabres have a problem convincing players to come here. And that's even with Don Granato. I understand that. That's even with Don Granato that's the case. But think of the guys they've acquired. How do they get guys to come here? They kind of only have one path to do that. They can't do it for the city. The city, they can't do it. Unless you're from Buffalo, you don't know. So, it's not fair to expect some kid from Vancouver that's playing in LA is going to go, yeah, I've always wanted to play in Buffalo. I mean, he might love it here once he gets here, but that's not fair to expect that he would think that way. So it's not the city. It's not the team. The team has had no success for a long time. 13 years. I mean, these guys were kids. They don't even remember it maybe the last time the Sabres were good. They aren't going to come here based on the organization, right? They don't have a very good reputation. I would doubt it. What's one thing that would get him here? It's the coach. And it's his respect amongst players. Look at how much the Sabres players love Don Granato. There was one, and only one that I remember, fire Don Granato chant in December in a game where they gave up 9 goals. That's it. And that one chant has caused Rasmus Dahlin that same week to kind of call out the fans, saying we didn't like that when they scored 9 the next game against Toronto. It really fired them up. They played that game for Donnie. They said it. They had stopped saluting the fans for a bit. And Kyle Okposo and other players kind of, didn't shy away from that and basically made it known through the grapevine, like, yeah, we were not happy at all with the fans because they did that. Again, we're talking about one chant in a game where they give up 9 goals. Alex Tuck, as recently as this week on the 32 Thoughts podcast, this week is still out here talking about it. He's still talking about how the fans chanted "Fire Donnie" in December and how they didn't like it, and that gave him a kick in the butt for some of these games this season. I know the joke there is like, well, how much kick in the butt did it give you because you didn't make the playoffs? But this recently is this week. I've still got a veteran player on this team that is talking about that chant from 4 months ago. Now, you can criticize the players all you want for that, and I would. That's how much they love Don Granato. Crazy. It's a crazy amount that they love Don Granato. They are still carrying that around with them. That's how much they respect this dude. And that's not unusual. That's not just for the Sabres. I mean, I know he was a Sabre. Jack Eichel has always spoken glowingly about Don Granato. United States National Development Program, too. Austin Matthews is someone who has always talked glowingly about Don Granato. Anyone, and look at Jordan Greenway, willing to come here if he had a choice, willing to come here because he was with Don Granato. Connor Clifton chose to sign here. Why? He was coached by Don Granato at the U.S. National Development Program. There are other examples, too. Anders Bjork, they traded for once upon a time. That might be a bad one because you didn't have to convince him to come here, but you know what I mean. He's a sales pitch. You don't have a lot. And players talk. Casey Middlestat goes to the Colorado Avalanche. You know what he probably tells teammates? Or if a player ever asked him, a member of the Avalanche hits free agency and is thinking about Buffalo, he texts Casey Middlestat. And what does Middlestat say? You're going to love him. He's awesome. You're going to love playing for him. I bet that word gets out. And I bet that that's one of their only sales pitches right now to players around the league is, listen, our team, our organization's a dumpster fire. Our fans are mad. We haven't been good in 13 years. The city is the city, but you're going to love Donnie. That is maybe the best sales pitch they have right now. Should that outrank results? I don't think so, personally. But I don't know that they have the ability to make that choice, that they can choose results aren't good enough over we're trying to trade for guys, we're trying to sign for guys, we're trying to add to our player pool. Do we really want to fire a coach who makes us more appealing of a destination? I think that's a big factor here as to why Don Granato is probably going to stick around into next year. That better translate into players, though. I'll say that, right? Like, hey, if that dries up, if you have all your guys now that are willing to come and play for you because they love you that much, because they used to be coached by you at the junior level, then there's that's not being valuable to me. You gotta get guys to come here. You gotta add the talent pool. But anyways, I think that's something that I don't often hear mentioned that I do think is a big factor here with Don Granato. He is respected by players. His players on this team would go to war for that guy. And they have almost they have gone through a cold war with the Sabres fans. That they chose Granato. Think about that. In a cold war, they chose Granato over the fans. Incredible. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres and Flames on Sunday at 9 o'clock. We'll see if they can get a game here and get to within 5. But you're going to need a ton of help just to get to within 5. There's no way there's too many games. There's no way they're going to be within 5 by Wednesday of next week. But I don't know, 7. They're not going to win all their games. Sorry to let everybody know. That's not happening. All right, that's it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Again, be sure to check out Locked On Sports today. A lot of college hoops coverage that time of year. YouTube, or Amazon Fire TV channels app, and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On's Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks, everybody, for listening today to the Locked On Sabres podcast, and we'll talk to you next time here on the show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.